The morning that would change everything began like any other, at NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Major Jake Martinez stared at the constellation of data points traversing his holographic display. The rhythmic pulse of tracking indicators accompanied by the soft hum of the command center. Space debris, satellites, and the occasional meteoroid. Everything normal. Until it wasn't. At precisely 9:47 Mountain Time, the system flagged an anomaly, then another, and another. Within seconds, the display transformed from its typical tranquil blue to an angry red as thousands of unidentified objects materialized at the edge of the solar system. "Sir," Martinez called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surge. "You need to see this." Admiral Ryan Davis crossed the room in 4 strides, his weathered face illuminated by the crimson glow. "Identification? None, sir." They appeared simultaneously at the heliopause. "Current count is—" Martinez paused, blinking at the rapidly increasing number. "Over 40,000 objects. Now 45, approaching 50,000. Davis's jaw tightened. "Size comparison?" "The smallest are approximately cruiser class, sir. The largest—" Martinez swallowed. "The largest are 20 kilometers in length. Get me the Pentagon. Now." Davis turned to the communications officer. "And alert the White House. We have a situation." 12 minutes later, in the White House Situation Room. President Lisa Murphy sat perfectly still as the Joint Chiefs delivered their assessment. Only her white-knuckled grip on her armrest betrayed her tension. "Madam President," General Kevin Brooks began, "we are witnessing what appears to be a coordinated approach of approximately 50,000 spacecraft of unknown origin. Their configuration and formation suggest military organization. Their velocity indicates technology far beyond our current capabilities." "How long until they reach Earth?" the President asked. "At current speed, approximately 6 hours. Defense Secretary Tom Bradley leaned forward. "Madam President, I recommend immediate mobilization of all armed forces and activation of our nuclear deterrent." "To what end, Tom?" President Murphy asked, her voice level. "You just said their technology exceeds ours. Would our weapons even make a dent?" The room fell silent. "Get me Dr. Elizabeth Kane from MIT, the President finally said. "Immediately." Deep beneath the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in a laboratory that officially didn't exist, Dr. Elizabeth Kane was already aware of the approaching fleet. The Project Prometheus monitoring systems had detected the vessels the moment they entered the solar system. Kane studied the data scrolling across her screen, her brilliant mind calculating possibilities. The vessels utilized some form of advanced fusion propulsion, efficient but surprisingly conventional. Their weapon systems appeared to be plasma-based, and most importantly, their defensive capabilities relied on electromagnetic shielding. All exploitable, all within parameters. When her secure line buzzed, she wasn't surprised to see the presidential seal. "Dr. Kane," the President's voice came through clearly. "I assume you're aware of our situation." "Yes, Madam President. We've been tracking them since they arrived." "Assessment." Kane hesitated. For 15 years, she had led Project Prometheus in absolute secrecy. Only a handful of people knew of its existence, and fewer still understood its true capabilities. Today, that would change. "Madam President, these craft belong to the Voran Empire. We've been monitoring their communications for years. They're an expansionist civilization, approximately 200 years ahead of our publicly acknowledged technology." A stunned silence followed. "Publicly acknowledged?" Secretary Bradley's voice cut in. "Yes, Mr. Secretary." Kane took a deep breath. "Project Prometheus was established 15 years ago, after we detected Voran scout ships observing Earth. We've been preparing. "Preparing how exactly?" the President asked. "Madam President, with all due respect, this isn't a secure enough channel for details. What I can tell you is that we are ready. but I need your authorization to activate our defense systems. Dr. Kane, are you telling me you have weapons capable of repelling an alien armada? No, Madam President. Kane allowed herself a small smile. I'm telling you we have weapons capable of obliterating one. In the vast emptiness between Mars and Jupiter, Admiral Zexar of the Voran Empire stood on the command deck of his flagship, a 25-kilometer Leviathan named Inevitable Conquest. His slate-gray skin stretched taut over sharp facial features as he observed the holographic representation of the Sol system. Pathetic, he murmured, studying the primitive defenses of the third planet. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear fission warheads. They haven't even mastered clean fusion. His second-in-command, Commander Vex, stood at attention. The subjugation fleet is in position, Admiral. All 50,000 vessels await your command. Zexar's mouth curved into what passed for a smile among his species. Begin standard intimidation protocol. Launch a single plasma volley at their moon. Let them witness our power before we offer terms of surrender. As you command, Admiral. Zexar settled into his command chair, already bored. Another primitive world to add to the glory of the Empire. The humans would surrender, as all lesser species did when confronted with superior technology. Then would come the resource extraction, the conscription of labor forces, the integration into the imperial economy as a servant world. Just another day in the expansion of civilization. Back on Earth, chaos erupted in major cities as word of the approaching fleet leaked to the public. Traffic jammed highways leading out of metropolitan areas. People flooded supermarkets, hoarding supplies. Prayer services filled houses of worship, while others sought solace in less spiritual comforts. In New York, Tokyo, London, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other cities, humans faced what they believed might be their final hours, with a mixture of panic, resignation, and defiance. At NORAD, Major Martinez watched the unfolding crisis with growing dread. The President had ordered all military personnel to stand by for further instructions, but no attack plans had been issued. Instead, cryptic messages about Operation Prometheus circulated among top brass. Sir, Martinez addressed Admiral Davis, with respect, shouldn't we be preparing some form of response, even if it's futile? Davis studied Martinez for a long moment. Major, what I'm about to tell you is classified beyond top secret. 15 years ago, we discovered we weren't alone in the universe. Not only that, but some of our cosmic neighbors weren't friendly. Instead of announcing this to the world and causing panic, a decision was made. A global, black-budget project was initiated, drawing the finest minds from every nation. Project Prometheus, Martinez whispered. Davis nodded. While the world continued its petty squabbles, a selected group worked in absolute secrecy to develop defenses against potential extraterrestrial threats. Dr. Elizabeth Kane leads that project. But, sir, what could they possibly have developed that could counter technology centuries beyond ours? That's the thing. Major, Davis allowed himself a thin smile. Our public technology is centuries behind. Our classified technology, that's another story entirely. In orbit around Saturn, hidden within its rings, 500 sleek vessels, silently powered up. Each bore no national insignia, only a simple logo, a stylized torch, the symbol of Prometheus, the titan who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. Captain Michel Grant, commander of the Prometheus fleet's lead vessel Hyperion, received the encrypted activation code from Earth. A veteran pilot with over 1,000 hours in experimental aircraft. Grant had been recruited to the project 7 years ago. Like everyone else aboard, she had officially died in an accident, allowing her to disappear from public records and dedicate herself fully to humanity's secret defense force. All vessels reporting ready, Captain, her tactical officer reported. Grant nodded. Activate quantum displacement shields and prepare for dimensional shift. Remember your training. We've run this simulation 1,000 times. She paused, looking at the determined faces of her crew. The difference is, today it's real. Today, we protect Earth. On the inevitable conquest, Admiral Zexar watched with satisfaction as the first volley of plasma torpedoes launched toward Earth's moon. A demonstration of power, traditional, effective, and usually sufficient to secure immediate surrender. Message prepared for transmission to Earth authorities, Commander Vex reported. Standard terms of capitulation, ready to broadcast in all their major languages. Zexar nodded approvingly. Send it as soon as the demonstration impacts. I want their primitive monitoring systems to register our power first, then receive our demands. The psychological effect is more. Admiral! The sensor officer's alarmed voice cut through the command deck. The plasma torpedoes. They've disappeared. Explain, Zexar demanded, rising from his chair. They reached the lunar orbit and simply vanished. No detonation, no impact. They're gone. Zexar's eyes narrowed. Sensor malfunction. Launch a full barrage. Target their major cities directly. In the White House Situation Room, President Murphy watched the alien plasma weapons disappear from tracking systems as they encountered what Dr. Kane called the quantum displacement field, a defensive shield that didn't stop incoming projectiles, but rather shunted them into a parallel dimension. It's working, Secretary Bradley whispered, his earlier skepticism evaporating. Dr. Kane's voice came through the secure channel. Madam President, they're preparing a larger attack. As we anticipated, they're escalating after the first demonstration failed. We're ready to proceed with Phase 2. The President closed her eyes briefly. 15 years of secret preparation had led to this moment. You have authorization, Doctor. Protect our planet. At NORAD, Major Martinez watched in disbelief as the alien fleet launched what appeared to be thousands of plasma weapons simultaneously, a barrage that could sterilize Earth's surface many times over. But like the first volley, these weapons simply vanished upon reaching lunar orbit. They'll figure out something's wrong soon, Admiral Davis commented. That's when they'll commit their fleet directly. And then? Martinez asked. Davis checked his watch. And then, Major, you're about to witness humanity's finest hour. On the inevitable conquest, Admiral Zexar's composure had transformed into barely contained fury. Impossible, he hissed, watching the second barrage disappear. Scan their planet again. They must have developed some form of defense system we didn't detect. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Zexar straightened his uniform. At last, their surrender. Put it through. Instead of a face, only audio came through, a calm, feminine voice. This is Dr. Elizabeth Kane of Earth. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your technology cannot defeat us. You have one opportunity to withdraw from our solar system. If you decline, we will consider your presence an act of war, and we will respond accordingly. Stunned silence fell over the command deck before Zexar erupted in laughter. The arrogance! A primitive species dares to threaten the Varan Empire? He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare the fleet for direct engagement. We will show these humans the price of defiance. As the massive Varan fleet began its approach toward Earth, Captain Grant received her final orders. Dimensional shift authorized. Weapons free. Operation Thunderbolt commencing. Grant nodded to her navigator. Take us in. In an instant, the 500 Prometheus vessels vanished from Saturn's rings, slipping between the fabric of conventional spacetime. When they reappeared, they were surrounding the Varan fleet, positioned at strategic points throughout the alien armada. The battle that followed would later be called the 4 minutes and 37 seconds war. It began with quantum disruption fields that disabled the Varan ship's navigation systems. Without warning, alien vessels found themselves unable to maintain formation, colliding with one another as their control systems failed. Next came the temporal disruptors, weapons that accelerated time within a localized field. Metal hulls that had been forged to last centuries aged millennia in seconds, becoming brittle and fracturing under normal space stresses. Then, the gravitational weapons activated. Miniaturized artificial singularities, human-made black holes the size of baseballs, appeared throughout the Varan fleet. Each lasted only microseconds. But in that time, they consumed matter completely, leaving perfect spherical voids in the alien vessels. The Prometheus ships moved with impossible precision, their quantum probability drives allowing them to exist in multiple potential locations simultaneously until observation collapsed them into a single point, always the exact position needed to avoid enemy fire while delivering their own attacks. The most devastating weapon, however, was the dimensional shear, a device that briefly split reality itself, slicing through Varan vessels as if they were made of paper. Entire dreadnoughts were cleaved in half, their power cores exploding in silent, brilliant flashes across the vacuum of space. Aboard the inevitable conquest, Admiral Zexar watched in horror as his invincible fleet was systematically dismantled by weapons he couldn't comprehend. "How is this possible?" he demanded, gripping his command console as the flagship shuddered under attack. "They are primitives. They don't even have interstellar travel." "Admiral," Commander Vex reported, his voice shaking. "We've lost 40% of the fleet already. Our weapons can't lock onto their vessels. Our shields are ineffective against their attacks." "Retreat," Zexar ordered, his voice hollow. "Signal full retreat." But retreat was impossible. The human vessels had deployed quantum entanglement fields that prevented faster-than-light travel. The Voran fleet was trapped. In the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, Major Martinez watched the battle unfold through data feeds from the Prometheus fleet. What had begun as a potential extinction-level threat to humanity had transformed into an overwhelming victory in less than 5 minutes. "My God," he whispered. "We're winning. We're actually winning." Admiral Davis nodded grimly. Project Prometheus wasn't just about defense. "Major, we knew from intercepted communications that the Voran Empire has conquered dozens of less advanced civilizations. They strip mine planets, enslave populations, and move on. We decided that when they eventually came for us, we wouldn't just survive. We would end their threat permanently." "How?" Martinez asked. "How did we develop this technology in secret?" "Global cooperation at a level never before seen in human history," Davis replied. "When facing extinction, old enemies become allies very quickly. Russian quantum physicists working alongside American engineers, Chinese artificial intelligence experts collaborating with European weapons designers, Israeli security specialists partnering with Iranian nuclear scientists, all with one goal: ensure humanity's survival." On the command deck of the Hyperion, Captain Grant received the surrender signal from the Voran flagship. "All vessels cease fire," she ordered. "Target their command ship for boarding. I want Admiral Zexar alive." Within 4 minutes and 37 seconds of engagement, the battle was over. Of the 50,000 Voran vessels that had entered the Sol system, only 17 remained intact, including the damaged flagship Inevitable Conquest. The boarding of the alien command ship was swift and clinical. Prometheus troops, equipped with personal quantum displacement shields that made them effectively invulnerable to Voran weapons, secured the vessel in minutes. Admiral Zexar and his senior officers were taken into custody without a single human casualty. In the White House Situation Room, President Murphy watched the live feed from the Inevitable Conquest as Captain Grant escorted a bound Admiral Zexar before a communication array. "Transmit your surrender to your homeworld," Grant instructed the alien commander. "Tell them exactly what happened here." Zexar's facial ridges darkened with what humans would later learn was the Voran equivalent of pallor, a sign of extreme distress or shame. Admiral Zexar of the Voran Empire, report complete defeat at Sol system. The human defense forces possess technology that..." He paused, struggling with the admission. That far exceeds our own. The subjugation fleet has been destroyed. Earth is under human protection. Do not attempt further incursions. As the message was transmitted across interstellar distances, Dr. Elizabeth Kane joined the president in the Situation Room. 15 years, Murphy said quietly. 15 years of preparation for 4.5 minutes of conflict. Kane nodded. The greatest victory is the one that appears effortless. Madam President, but I assure you, those 15 years were filled with failures, setbacks, and moments when we thought we'd never succeed. The world will want answers, Secretary Bradley noted. We've developed technology centuries beyond what the public believes possible, and we've used it to defeat an alien invasion. The implications are staggering. Which is why our next steps are crucial, Kane replied. We've protected Earth, but the universe just became a much more complicated place for humanity. As dawn broke over a world that had nearly faced extinction without even knowing it, decisions were being made that would reshape human civilization forever. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in history, representatives from all nations received the same classified briefing simultaneously. Earth had been targeted for conquest by an expansionist alien empire, and humanity's secret technological development had not only repelled the invasion, but established our species as a formidable power in the galaxy. Project Prometheus, the 15-year global black project that had produced quantum displacement technology, artificial microsingularities, dimensional shearing weapons, and faster-than-light communication, would now be gradually revealed to the public. But the revelation came with a responsibility. Earth had discovered it was not alone in a hostile universe, and many other civilizations lacked the resources or unity to develop the defenses humanity had created. Major Jake Martinez found himself assigned as military liaison to the scientific team, debriefing the captured Voran officers. The aliens' arrogance had quickly transformed into a wary respect as they realized the extent of human technological achievement. You concealed your capabilities, Admiral Zexar stated during one session, his translator converting his harsh language into English. The Voran Empire monitored Earth for decades. We observed your primitive space exploration, your reliance on chemical rockets, your quaint nuclear fission. It was all a deception. Martinez shook his head. Not a deception, Admiral. A parallel development. Our public space program continued along a natural progression, while Project Prometheus operated in absolute secrecy. Your scouts observed what we allowed them to see. Zexar's facial ridges flattened. A gesture Martinez had learned indicated contemplation. Such coordination across your entire species? Impossible. Your world has hundreds of sovereign territories, thousands of languages, perpetual conflicts. When survival is at stake, Martinez replied, humans are remarkably good at setting aside differences. On the other side of the facility, Dr. Elizabeth Kane supervised the analysis of Voran technology. Despite the aliens' advanced capabilities, Prometheus had leapfrogged their development in several crucial areas, particularly in quantum mechanics and dimensional manipulation. Their approach to physics is fundamentally different, Kane explained to President Murphy during a secure briefing. They expanded outward from conventional technologies, better materials, more efficient energy production, larger-scale engineering. We went sideways, exploring quantum realities and the manipulation of space-time itself. Like two different paths up the same mountain, the president observed. Exactly. They climbed steadily while we tunneled through. In some areas, they're still centuries ahead of us, particularly in biological sciences and sustainable fusion. In others, we've achieved what they considered theoretically impossible. The president studied the holographic display of captured Voran technology. And the other species they've conquered? What about them? Kane's expression darkened. According to the data we've extracted, the Voran Empire controls 27 inhabited worlds. Most were subjugated with minimal resistance. Some have been under imperial control for centuries. Slaves, Murphy said quietly. Essentially, yes. Though the Voran have an elaborate philosophical framework that justifies their actions as uplifting, less advanced species. They genuinely believe they're bringing civilization to the primitive. The white man's burden. On a galactic scale, Secretary Bradley commented from across the room. Our victory changes everything for those worlds, Kane continued. The Voran Empire's invincibility has been shattered. We've already detected increased communication between subjugated worlds. They know something significant has happened. President Murphy was silent for a long moment, contemplating the immense responsibility that had suddenly fallen to humanity. When she finally spoke, her voice was resolute. We need to establish contact with these civilizations, not as conquerors, but as liberators. The transition was not instantaneous. For weeks after the failed invasion, Earth's governments managed a careful release of information to the public. First came the announcement of first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Then, the revelation of the attempted invasion. Finally, the disclosure of Project Prometheus and humanity's successful defense. Global markets fluctuated wildly as corporations and economies struggled to incorporate the implications of quantum displacement technology, artificial gravity, and dimensional engineering into their future projections. Religious leaders gathered to interpret the theological significance of alien life. Educational systems scrambled to update curricula that had suddenly become obsolete. Yet amid the chaos of adjustment, a profound change swept through human consciousness. The petty divisions of nationality, ideology, and faith that had defined human history seemed suddenly insignificant against the backdrop of a universe teeming with intelligent life. Earth was no longer the center of existence, but one world among countless others, and humans were no longer alone. Captain Michelle Grant found herself unexpectedly cast as a hero. As commander of the Hyperion during the brief conflict, her face became synonymous with humanity's defense. She handled the attention with characteristic grace, deflecting praise to the thousands of scientists, engineers, and military personnel who had made Project Prometheus possible. We were simply the visible edge of a vast human achievement, she told reporters during a carefully managed press conference. The real victory belongs to those who worked in shadows for 15 years, sacrificing recognition and normal lives to protect our planet. The most significant developments, however, occurred far from public view. In the secure facility where Admiral Zexar and his officers were detained, a dialogue had begun that would reshape galactic politics. Your species has a choice to make, Zexar told Dr. Kane during one of their discussions. You have demonstrated power that the Voran Empire respects. You could negotiate favorable terms, perhaps a non-aggression pact, recognition of your sovereign space, even trade agreements. And leave your other conquests in place? Kane asked. Allow you to continue subjugating lesser species while giving Earth special status? Zexar's expression registered confusion. Of course. That is the natural order. The strong protect their interests. You misunderstand humanity, Admiral. Kane replied calmly. We don't seek special treatment. We seek justice. Justice? The alien nearly spat the word. A primitive concept. There is only power and its application. That philosophy led your fleet to destruction in less than 5 minutes, Kane noted. Perhaps it's time to consider alternatives. As the Voran officers gradually recognized the precariousness of their empire's position, their attitude shifted from condescension to pragmatism. Earth possessed technology that could render the Imperial fleet obsolete. Worse, humans had expressed interest in contacting the subjugated worlds under Voran control. A month after the failed invasion, Admiral Zexar requested a formal diplomatic meeting with Earth's representatives. The setting was symbolic. Aboard the Hyperion, the vessel that had led humanity's defense. President Murphy attended personally, accompanied by a delegation that represented Earth's major powers and the leadership of Project Prometheus. Admiral Zexar arrived with his remaining officers, their once proud postures now subdued. "The Voran Empire acknowledges Earth as a sovereign power," Zexar began, the words clearly difficult for him. "We propose a treaty of non-interference and recognition of territorial boundaries." President Murphy studied the alien commander thoughtfully. "Your proposal addresses relations between Earth and the Voran Empire. It does not address the status of the worlds you've conquered." Zexar's facial ridges darkened. "Those worlds are Imperial territory, administered under Imperial law." "Those worlds," the President replied firmly, "are occupied by sentient beings with the same right to self-determination that humans possess. Any agreement between Earth and the Voran Empire must include provisions for their liberation." "Impossible," Zexar protested. "The Empire has stood for 7 centuries. You cannot demand the dissolution of our civilization." "We don't seek to destroy the Voran civilization, Admiral," Dr. Kane interjected. "We seek to transform it, from an empire built on conquest to a commonwealth based on cooperation." The negotiations continued for days, with human representatives maintaining an unwavering position. Earth would not recognize Voran authority over unwilling populations. The Empire could transform itself into a voluntary association or face the consequences of continued human opposition. Faced with a technological superiority demonstrated during the brief conflict, the Voran delegation eventually conceded. A transitional agreement was reached. The Empire would withdraw military forces from occupied worlds and allow Earth observers to oversee free determination votes on each planet. In return, humanity would share certain technologies with the Voran, particularly in sustainable energy production and environmental restoration. The exchange would create interdependence that could form the foundation for peaceful relations. As the diplomatic proceedings concluded, Major Martinez found himself standing beside Dr. Kane on the observation deck of the Hyperion, watching the Voran delegation depart in one of their 17 surviving vessels. "Do you think they'll honor the agreement?" he asked. Kane smiled faintly. "They don't have much choice. Our monitoring systems will detect any violation immediately, and they know we can deploy the Prometheus fleet anywhere in their territory within minutes." "It's strange," Martinez mused. "A month ago, I was tracking space debris at NORAD. Now I'm watching aliens leave after negotiating galactic peace terms." "The universe changed for them, too," Kane replied. "Imagine the shockwaves spreading through their society right now. An invincible empire for 7 centuries, defeated in minutes by a species they considered primitive. Their entire worldview has collapsed, along with their economy, I'd imagine. Didn't you say their system was built on resource extraction from conquered worlds?" Kane nodded. "Which is why the technology exchange is crucial. We're giving them a path forward that doesn't rely on exploitation. Whether they take it," she shrugged, "that's their choice." 6 months after the failed invasion, the first human diplomatic mission departed for Nexus Station, a neutral meeting ground established at the former border of Voran space. Representatives from Earth would encounter delegates from 27 formerly subjugated worlds, many experiencing self-governance for the first time in generations. Dr. Elizabeth Kane, appointed as Earth's scientific envoy, stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Concordia as it prepared for its first dimensional shift. "Nervous?" Captain Grant asked, now commanding the flagship of Earth's diplomatic fleet. "Terrified," Kane admitted with a small laugh. "I'm a physicist, not a diplomat." "You negotiated with Admiral Zexar better than any professional diplomat could have," Grant pointed out. "Besides, these civilizations want to meet the humans who broke the Empire. You're part of the package." As the Concordia's engines hummed with the distinctive resonance of quantum displacement technology, Kane reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought humanity to this moment. From a species confined to one planet to a power capable of reshaping galactic politics in less than a generation. Dimensional shift in 30 seconds, the navigation officer announced. President Murphy's final words before their departure echoed in Kane's mind. Remember who we are and what we stand for. Earth doesn't seek to replace one empire with another. We protect the weak. We uphold freedom. We offer partnership, not domination. As the Concordia slipped between dimensions, carrying humanity's representatives to their first interstellar diplomatic mission, Dr. Elizabeth Kane felt the weight of that responsibility and the hope it represented. Earth had defeated the Varan Empire not just through superior technology, but through unity of purpose and moral clarity. The true test would be whether humanity could maintain those principles as it stepped onto the galactic stage. The dimensional shift completed, and Nexus Station appeared before them, a massive structure of unfamiliar architecture, surrounded by vessels of various designs, representing the formerly subjugated worlds. "We've arrived," Captain Grant announced. "All systems normal. We're being welcomed by the station control." Kane took a deep breath, steadying herself for what would come next. "Then, let's introduce ourselves to the neighborhood." As the Concordia docked with Nexus Station, humanity prepared to begin its new role in the cosmos, not as conquerors or subjects, but as protectors. The brief war that had lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds had changed everything, revealing not just what humans could do, but who they could be. The Empire had launched a full invasion of Earth, and humans had wiped them out in minutes. But the true victory wasn't the battle. It was what came after. A species united in defense had discovered a greater purpose, building a future where power served justice, and the strong protected the weak. That would be humanity's legacy among the stars.